Opening one eye, the girl was breathing heavily. Her trembling palms lay on the wrist of the man who was strangling her body shaking with fear. The palms slowly moved away from the girl's neck, and she was finally able to take a deep breath, the air rushing into her lungs, bringing relief and life. Her body went limp. With one powerful blow from Oliver's hand, the guy strangling the young girl flew back. The boy's body skidded across the ground, leaving a trail behind it. Ouch! He winced, closing his eyes. The hero rose from the ground with difficulty and sat in the lotus position. He looked down at his hands, looking at them in surprise. The guy grabbed his head and squeezed his hair. He winced in pain. His eyes were closed. Pictures started to pop into his head, one after another. They flashed before his mind's eye so fast that he could barely make them out. He frowned even more. What are these memories? Suddenly, the sharp end of a sword touched his shoulder. He looked up and saw a girl in front of him. Her eyes were full of determination. "Little brother, you have already lost, so why do you continue to resist?" The girl blushed with embarrassment, but her face still remained angry. Her eyebrows were drawn together across the bridge of her nose. "I don't know." The guy stared at her in surprise, raising his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "You don't know, you say?" This answer only made the girl even more angry. "Little brother Oliver, give up already. Big sister is not interested in you at all." A female voice suddenly rang out nearby. The boy turned his head and saw a petite girl with pink hair. "You've already lost twice, but you're still acting like an idiot. Are you really that ashamed to accept rejection?" She still didn't calm down. "When did I ever say I liked her?" Oliver's eyebrows rose and he stared at the girl in confusion. "You! Oh, you! How shameless you are!" Choking on her indignation, the girl began to shake her finger at him. "Little sister, we have nothing more to do here, let's go." The girl abruptly removed the sword from the guy's face and put it in the case on her belt. A light blue platform formed under the girl's feet. She took a step forward and stood on it. The platform rose into the air, carrying her higher and higher. Oliver grabbed his head, feeling dizzy, and then pressed his palm to his nose, from which blood suddenly gushed. "What the hell is going on here? This doesn't feel like a dream. All my senses are working, and I even felt the cold from the blade on my neck." The boy, leaning against the tree, exhaled and put all the pieces of the puzzle together. "I was transported to the game Legend of the Immortal Swordsman." Beads of sweat appeared on his face. The boy started walking around in circles, thinking about what had happened to him. He couldn't believe he was in a video game. Damn it. In the story, it was the scene where NPC Oliver challenges Adelaide and is soundly defeated. Because he kept pestering her, it eventually forced Adelaide to seek help from Big Brother Alexander. After it was revealed that Oliver was a member of the Demon Clan, he was killed by Adelaide during the Great Competition of the Heavenly Realm half a year later. The boy put his hands on his face and threw his head back. "The worst part is that I kept missing NPC dialogues during the game. I only vaguely remember the general plot." Oliver exhaled heavily. "Luckily, I almost finished the game and still know about the main events. If you think about it, I can be compared to a god." The guy smiled at the corner of his lips and resolutely clenched his hand into a fist. "Little brother Oliver." Hearing his name called, Oliver turned around and saw a beautiful girl with purple hair approaching him. It was Beatrice, an outer disciple. Oliver raised his eyebrows in surprise when he saw the girl, and he remembered that she was Alexander's lackey, pretended to be Oliver's friend. In fact, she loves Alex according to the plot. One night when Oliver was finally rejected by Adelaide and fell into unconsciousness, Beatrice sucked out his entire essence, hiding behind the fact that she wanted to comfort him. Suddenly, her foot tripped on a small stone. At that moment, the girl felt herself losing her balance. With her hair flying and a smile on her face, she began to fall in the direction of the guy. "Oh, Olya's little brother, help me!" Oliver suddenly stepped to the side and the girl, losing her balance, fell face down into the dirt with a loud thud. Beatrix raised herself slightly, leaning one hand on the ground, wiping her cheek, which was covered in dirt, with the other hand making a pitiful face. "Why didn't you catch me? Ouch, how it hurts. Aren't you ashamed?" "Sister Beatrix, men and women should not touch each other. I just didn't want to tarnish your reputation. I think you should get up and drink some healing wine at home." Oliver quickly turned around and rushed forward, throwing out at the end, "And I have things to do, so I'll be the first to turn away." The girl shouted after the running boy. "Little brother? I can't get up, little brother." But when he disappeared from sight, her face darkened, she frowned angrily. And how will I explain to Alexander that I returned empty-handed?" Oliver walked along the narrow stone path that meandered through the greenery and flowers. leading him to a two-story house located on a hill. The boy gently rubbed his neck with his palm, thinking, "Currently, I am an outer disciple of Lu Shui Peak, so I do not have a token. And without it, I will not be able to leave the barrier of the heavenly realm. I must complete the mandatory tasks to obtain the token." The guy quietly entered the house, carefully closing the door behind him. He gently sat down on the edge of the bed and put his palms on his knees, thoughtfully looking at his legs. "After all, if I can't leave the heavenly kingdom, then most likely I'll die from Adelaide's sword in 6 months. With a heavy sigh, he fell back onto the soft mattress. Closing his eyes, he continued his thoughts. Right now, she is already at the 3rd stage of vein condensation, while I am only at the chi refining stage. By that time, Adelaide will have reached the peak of the golden core stage, and this pathetic NPC will still not break through. He opened his eyes wide and frowned sharply. I need to leave the heavenly realm before the great competition, and since I've come to this exciting world, I should enjoy it to the fullest. Suddenly, Beatrice appeared in the doorway. Leaning against the frame, she smiled slightly and drawled, "Little brother Oliver, Adelaide never liked you." Oliver exhaled and rose from the bed, assuming a sitting position, frowning his brows. "Damn it, how annoying! But I'm no less attractive than she is, so why don't you pay attention to me?" The girl took a step towards him. Oliver just rolled his eyes, pursing his lips. The guy propped his cheek up with his fist and, without showing any particular emotion, looked indifferently at the girl who was approaching him. She said softly, "Let me heal your broken heart," and looked at him with a sparkle in her eyes. Oliver's brow furrowed, his cheeks flushed, and a shiver ran down his spine. "What's going on? Why do I suddenly want to be as close to her as possible?" Beatrice gently ran her hand down his cheek, stroking it softly. "Look, your body wants me too." She deftly climbed on top of him, pushing him onto the bed, her body softly pressing against his, creating an intimate atmosphere between them. As soon as the maiden touched his cheek with her palm again, Oliver took a deep breath. His heart stopped for a moment. That's it, come on. Soon you will experience heavenly pleasure." Beatrice leaned towards the guy's ear, gently squeezing his shoulder with her palm. Oliver pushed the girl away from him with a sharp movement of his palm, so that she flew into the air. The girl hit her back against the door of the house with a loud bang, the sound of the blow echoing as if someone had hit a metal glass. Beatrice collapsed to the floor, gritting her teeth against the sharp pain in her back. She raised herself slightly on her hands, wincing in pain. Oliver looked at his palm in surprise, from which a mysterious blue glow emanated. "The energy of continuous movement to my fingertips. Is this cultivation?" He raised his gaze to Beatrice, who was still lying on the floor. But at this moment, his thoughts were clouded by something else entirely. The original master of the body was a demonic wolf, even though he had just recently assumed a human form. His first stage of Starfire is equivalent to the foundation formation stage of human cultivators. The girl rose to her feet, placed her palm on her chest, and cleared her throat slightly, trying to catch her breath. "Brother Oliver, are you crazy?" Oliver, with his lips curled in displeasure, raised his finger and threatened the girl. "Sister Beatrice, I told you outside that I don't want to tarnish your reputation by touching you. Besides, this is my room. I even closed the door, but you came in even without my permission." The girl bashfully lowered her eyes to the floor. Her cheeks were slightly flushed. "I've been in love with you for a long time, you know it yourself," Oliver chuckled, folding his arms across his chest and leaning slightly towards her. "In love, you say? Then why did you cast a charm spell on me? Eh, Sister Beatrice?" The girl's eyes immediately widened. The guy kicked the girl in the ass with one decisive movement, escorting her out the door, throwing out the rest of her clothes as well. Oliver smiled triumphantly as he closed the door and rubbed his palms together, shaking off the dust. "Wanted to suck out my essence to help her lover. Does she really think I'm as much of an idiot as the original owner of the body was? Although I don't remember the backstory of this NPC very well, it said something about the blood essence of his demonic wolf clan and how it greatly accelerates cultivation. But he was lazy from the start and didn't want to cultivate." Oliver pressed his fingers to his chin, grinning. Towards the middle of the day, a wind picked up, violently tearing leaves from the trees, which swirled through the air before falling softly to the ground. The guy looked around carefully, making sure there was no one around. Oliver began to move carefully between the trees in the forest, trying to choose the quietest paths. He carefully jumped from one tree to another. He jumped forward sharply and, not expecting an obstacle, hit his face against the barrier that suddenly appeared in front of him. Oliver lost his balance and before he could react, fell to the ground. Ouch! You can't just leave the kingdom of heaven. The girl confidently walked through the barrier and, leaning over the guy, asked with interest, Oliver? He looked at the girl in surprise. Alice? The girl looked at the guy in surprise. Her eyes widened slightly and her lips parted. Do you want to leave the mountain? No, what are you talking about? I was just taking a walk. I was a little tired and decided to take a break. Oliver rubbed his neck awkwardly. Sister Alice, have you just returned from a mission? I received a message from the Chronicles that junior brother Oliver challenged Lu Shui Peak's top disciple Adelaide. This is big news. So I just had to go back and write about it. The girl started walking forward, and the guy followed her. I received a solo mission, but on the way there, I heard about this event. I thought I still had enough time to complete the task, so I came back to write the article, but I never imagined that I would run into you. You just have to tell me the details. The guy rolled his eyes at this, unable to contain his irritation, and putting his hand to his face. Well, I hit my head then. It's all just a misunderstanding. Little brother, you're not really in love with Adelaide, right? In fact, everyone around you is saying that you're just jealous of big brother Alexander. So you're picking on Sister Ida, is that true? Alice laughed softly, putting her hand to her lips. But you don't have to worry, she only treats him as a sect brother. The boy looked at the girl in surprise as he continued walking. How can I even like Sister Yida? Even though we are all students in the Heavenly Realm sect, there is still a boundary between us and Yan Yang Peak. I have almost never seen Sister Yida. Huh? But the last time you challenged her, you said that you would defeat her in the great competition of the Heavenly Kingdom and make her your wife. The guy shuddered at the girl's words and, pursing his lips, looked away. Sister Ida is at the vein condensation stage and will definitely reach the gold core in half a year. She is indeed the elder sister. Moreover, she received a title from the sect master. So now she can't be called the elder sister. Now she should be addressed as Miss Adelaide. Alice smiled and looked at the guy with a sly look. I got drunk that day and started talking nonsense, hee. Oliver's face began to sweat from excitement, and he slowly looked away. Little brother, tell me, was there something between you and Mrs. Adelaide? Alice suddenly pressed herself against Oliver's shoulder, grabbing his hand. And for this information, I will give you 3 low-grade spiritual stones, okay? A bright smile appeared on her face, and her eyes widened like a child who saw candy. In the residential area of Lu Shui Peak, the wind died down and silence reigned all around. The cozy streets became calm. Sister Alice, I just remembered that I left some healing soup to cook in my room. Oliver abruptly pulled his hand out of the girl's grip. He's probably almost ready, so it's time for me to go. Oliver quickly ran forward, hoping to get away from the annoying girl. Alice suddenly blocked the boy's path, shouting, Little brother, wait! He jumped back slightly. We're neighbors. Wouldn't it be better if we went together? Ha, I think I really hit my head hard. Then let's go. Oliver laughed awkwardly, forcing out a semblance of a smile. Actually, I think you have very pure energy. If you continue to train hard, then in 3 years, you will have a chance to fight Miss Adelaide. There is no need to rush and do everything in that year. Alice followed the guy, pressing her palms to her chest. He slowly lowered his head, and then a deep sigh escaped his chest, his eyes rolling back under his eyelids. I don't even know if I can survive the next 6 months. The dream lotus that Miss Adelaide currently has is a reward that the sect master himself gave. If you could obtain one extremely rare blade, the Sun Dragon Flame Sword, it would greatly accelerate your development. But I don't know where it is now, Alice exclaimed and looked at the guy with admiration in her eyes. Thank you very much for the advice, elder sister Alice. But I really don't have any feelings for Sister Ida. She's a bird of a completely different feather. Oliver folded his hands in front of him and bowed slightly in front of the girl. You don't have to pretend Mrs. Adelaide is a household name right now, and you've met her so many times already. The girl pressed herself against the guy from behind, wrapping her palms around his torso. I hope that your relationship will soon reach a new level. By the way, you were just trying to get down the mountain. You're not tired at all, are you? The girl asked, breaking away from the guy. I knew I wouldn't be able to hide this from Sister Alice, Oliver said quietly. If I remember correctly, you haven't completed any missions yet. If you can complete at least 4 tasks, you might be allowed to go down the mountain. The girl gently put her finger to her lips. I was just thinking about going to the resource pavilion tomorrow about this, Oliver replied with a smile on his face. Brother Oliver is a little different from how he used to be. Before this, you always came up with various excuses when I persuaded you to take the task." She frowned and looked at the guy, slightly squinting her eyes. "Today you are a bit hyperactive. Maybe it's all because—" Oliver swallowed, trying to pull himself together. He felt his hands go cold and his breathing quicken. "Has she realized I'm not the right NPC? If I get found out, who knows what awaits me? In the power of love?" Alice finished her sentence, moving closer to Oliver's face. "Oh, haha. It's just that after 2 years in the Heavenly Kingdom, I realize that the older I get, the less time I have to waste." Oliver exhaled and laughed, squinting. "Here we are." Alice pointed to a small building ahead. The sun was already setting, painting the sky in soft pink hues. Sounds began to be heard from behind the wooden door, as if a real fight was taking place there. "I have a bad feeling about this." Oliver looked at the door, drawing his eyebrows together. "Oh well, it's already dark, so I'll make a plan of action tomorrow." Oliver resolutely opened the door and resolutely stepped inside. As soon as he stepped inside, his body suddenly transformed, and he found himself in the body of a dog, soft white fur, an elongated nose and pointed ears, all of which replaced the familiar human features. "Oh shit. I forgot that the original owner of this body is a demonic wolf. And in the early stages, I can return to my animal form when night falls." He grabbed his clothes, which remained on the floor, with his teeth, trying to lift them up. "Spiritual beast?" A voice suddenly rang out from behind him, and he froze, clutching the cloth in his mouth. "Are you the spirit beast of one of our students?" It was Adelaide. She slowly walked up to the beast and looked at it in surprise. The girl squatted down and gently stroked the dog's head, causing its tail to twitch joyfully. "And even without a binding spell, don't you really have an owner?" Adelaide carefully picked up the dog and held it to her chest, hugging it lovingly. "This is a student dormitory, so if you don't have an owner, you can't come in here." The girl's gaze fell on the clothes that Oliver left behind when he turned into an animal. She snorted quietly. "Whose room is this? How can you even leave your clothes right next to the entrance? Are you hungry? Then come to me. I'll give you something to eat, poor thing." Ida pouted slightly, and Oliver stuck out his dog tongue and closed his eyes, enjoying the pleasant smell from the girl. Oliver opened his eyes abruptly. "Oh no, Adelaide has a jade spirit physique that naturally attracts demons. If I can absorb some of her essence, it will greatly enhance my cultivation." He shook his head sharply to clear these thoughts from his mind. Noticing this movement, the girl frowned. "What's wrong, puppy?" Oliver looked at her in surprise, his red eyebrows frowning. "Puppy? Is it really the same person?" Adelaide bowed her head and touched the soft fur of the dog with her lips. "Don't be afraid, your sister will protect you." After closing the door behind her, Ida walked into the room and said gently, "Master entrusted me to deliver something to Uncle at Lu Shui Peak, and I accidentally met you, little puppy. I think you're very cute." She placed Oliver on a small table and took a rag in her palm. "Let me wipe your little paws." Adelaide took the puppy's little paw and gently wiped it with a cloth to wipe away the dirt. "You're dirty, puppy. I don't remember ever seeing a spirit beast in the heavenly realm." Ida picked up a small comb and gently began to comb Oliver's white fur. The puppy sat motionless, thinking, "What the hell is going on here? Why is Adelaide not acting like she did in the game? And why is she treating me like this anyway?" Today, little brother Oliver challenged me to a fight again, and, as expected, he lost. He's so weird. Everyone thinks he likes me, but I don't think so. I don't really hate brother Ollie, it's just... Ida gently picked up the puppy and lifted him up so that he was now at her eye level. He looked at her in surprise. "It doesn't matter, you're still little and you won't understand anything anyway." The dog's tail was pressed against his body between his legs, and his ears were lowered. "What a shame! I'm naked." "I didn't expect you to be so shy, the epitome of innocence. Today I'll let you sleep with me." Adelaide picked up Oliver in her arms and gently lowered him onto the bed. As soon as the girl began to pull off her clothes to get ready for bed, the puppy blushed brightly. His small ears pressed against his head for a moment, and his eyes widened in surprise. She really likes little animals. Does she really often catch spirit beasts to sleep with her? What should I do? Do I really have to sleep next to her? The girl settled comfortably on the soft bed, pressing a small puppy to her chest. She hugged him tenderly and covered herself with a blanket. "Time to sleep, baby." Oliver made a sad face and his eyes closed, reflecting the thoughts, "How can I even sleep here?" After she undressed, the smell of her jade body became even stronger. "I can't hold myself back anymore." But now I'm just a little dog that can't talk or do anything else, damn it. I'm trapped. Oliver, having waited until the girl finally fell asleep, carefully and gently got out from under the blanket. He tried not to disturb her. "Baby, stop fidgeting," the girl muttered sleepily and rolled over onto her other side, and the puppy suddenly froze in place. The dog quietly got off the bed and went to the open window. A light breeze tickled her nose deliciously. "I think we can climb out the window. Then we won't have to make noise opening the door." Oliver, happily wagging her tail, jumped onto the windowsill. He pulled himself up and, without thinking, jumped out of the window, deftly landing on the ground. Without a second's hesitation, the guy rushed away from the house. The next day, as the first rays of the sun illuminated the city, the resources pavilion, crowds of people poured into the square, turning it into a sea of heads and sounds. As Oliver entered the room, the low hum of voices suddenly died down. People turned to look at him, their eyes following his every step. Whispers ran through the crowd. "Isn't this the same disciple from Lu Shui Peak who challenged Miss Adelaide yesterday? I heard that he is jealous of her towards senior brother Alexander, afraid that she will run away with him." Senior brother Alexander is the top disciple of Lu Shui Peak. How can this Oliver even compare to him? The boy snorted, his disdain for the crowd's comments obvious. He turned and glanced over his shoulder at them. "Stop whispering already, I can hear you." Oliver walked up to the counter where an elderly man with black glasses was sitting. "Elder, I came to take a low-level mission." The old man raised his finger and said, "All the missions for this month have already been distributed. Unfortunately, you are late." "What? But I really need to." Oliver raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the elder. "Oh, so it must be—" The old man stroked his long white beard. He leaned over and opened an old wooden box that was under the counter. Inside, there was a golden ticket. He carefully took the ticket in his hands and showed it to Oliver. "I still have one more mission left. The reward for it is only 2 points. So few people want to take it. Are you sure?" Oliver took the golden ticket in his hands and looked at it in surprise. It was made of a thin sheet of real gold and decorated with intricate patterns. And the old man continued, "The mission will begin the moment you leave the mountain. If you don't complete it within a week, you won't be able to take another mission for 2 months. A fire lit up in Oliver's eyes. "Then could you please help me with the registration? I agree." As the day wore on, the sky turned a palette of soft pastel colors, and the city lights came on one by one. Oliver untied the strings of the bag and poured its contents onto the table. Several small blue stones rolled out onto the smooth wooden surface. The guy propped his cheek with his palm and exhaled. 12 low-grade spiritual stones. The original owner was a real poor man. The guy leaned over the table, his gaze fixed on the blue stones. He closed his eyes and put his palm to his head. "Dude, you had a weak cultivation, and almost no money. Why did you even come to the heavenly realm?" Although I seem to recall that you come from a pretty good family, a famous clan of demonic wolves. But then why are you so poor? Little brother Oliver." Alice looked at the guy through the window. She smiled widely and her face glowed with joy. "I heard that you already took the mission." "Oh, elder sister Alice, yes, I registered not long ago. The elder gave me a one-time permission to leave the mountain." The boy shuddered and recoiled from the window. "By the way, I heard that Miss Ida also just received a mission to leave the mountain, and as far as I know, your mission targets are very close. Are you saying that on purpose?" She lightly threatened him with her finger. "It's just that no one wanted to take this mission, and the elder agreed to give it to me. A simple coincidence." Oliver raised his palms in a conciliatory gesture. "Is that so? Is it because you have so little money?" Alice looked at the table in surprise, on which several small stones were lying. "If you complete this mission, you can exchange the 2 points you earned for 10 medium spirit stones," Alice said, and smiled, closing her eyes. 10 medium spirit stones? That's equivalent to 300 liang of silver," Oliver exclaimed happily. "Depending on the region, it might even be more. Well, since I've given you such valuable information, now you simply must tell me about your romantic adventures with Miss Adelaide when you return. And if you ever become cultivation partners, then I will be famous throughout the entire heavenly realm." From the information provided, the girl lightly stamped her foot, hitting her heel on the ground. "See you later." Alice waved her hand at Oliver and turned around, walking forward. Oliver let out a tired breath and closed his eyes. After all, talking to Alice was exhausting. Double cultivation with Adelaide? I would have died before I even tried. The next day, a boy was walking through the forest, along a narrow path. surrounded by tall trees and dense undergrowth. The sun was shining through the leaves, casting strange shadows on the ground. He was thinking out loud, 12 low-grade spiritual stones, mid-star flame stage, knowledge of the plot, that's all. Oliver grabbed his head, saying a little louder, "There's no point in even thinking about escaping from the heavenly kingdom. In a week I'll die of hunger. I need to get some money as soon as possible and break through to the next stages. Otherwise, when the time comes to escape, I'll be caught off guard. Something will definitely not go according to plan." Oliver yawned loudly, the sound echoing through the quiet forest, while Beatrice sat behind the rock in front of him and couldn't help but chuckle at his involuntary outburst. She gently lifted her leg out of the water, dousing it with drops that sparkled in the sun. "It's so clean here." The guy, running past the stone, noticed movement out of the corner of his eye and shuddered, opening his eyes wide. "Who's there?" Oliver screamed at the top of his voice, frightening the girl, who, before she could come to her senses, fell into the water, and splashes flew in all directions. "Big sister Beatrix?" the boy asked uncertainly, a couple of drops of sweat rolling down his face. "Brother Olya, were you really looking for me?" The girl rose from the water, looking at the guy with a languid gaze. "I was just passing by and decided to quench my thirst. If I had known that you were swimming here, I would have made a detour," the guy laughed, awkwardly rubbing his neck with his palm. "What a coincidence that we are here alone, the two of us. Now you don't have to be shy." Beatrice smiled, tilting her head to the side, while her dress stuck to her wet body. "I need to get down from the mountain as soon as possible to complete the mission. I dare not distract you any longer, Sister Beatrice. Enjoy your water treatments." Oliver turned around and jerked to the side. "Ollie's little brother, don't go!" She suddenly pounced on him from behind, hugging him around the neck, and laughed merrily. "You used to be much kinder to me. What happened? If I made you angry, then please tell me what I did wrong." She leaned towards his ear and whispered, "Big Sister Beatrice, are you really a pervert?" Beatrice fell to her knees, resting her palms on the floor. She was breathing heavily, showing her helplessness. "Pervert? Ollie's brother, I really have feelings for you, so why are you treating me like this?" the girl said plaintively and put her palm on her chest, looking at the guy. "Big Sister Beatrice, you better pay more attention to Big Brother Alexander. Bye-bye." Oliver snapped his fingers, turned on his heels, and walked forward. The unknown guy sat on a tree branch stretching over the lake and listened to the spectacle unfolding before him. He nimbly jumped down from the branch, leaning his palm on the ground, landing softly on the ground. "This Oliver is really strange, even though he says he admires you, but I heard that he has a rather close relationship with this Beatrice." The guy stood up and started to brush the dust off his uniform. Each light blow on the fabric raised clouds of dust that slowly dissolved into the air. She just tried to get closer to him, but he refused her and even called her a pervert. "I still can't figure out what's going on in his head." He took a couple of steps forward and stood next to Adelaide. "Little brother Marcus, you shouldn't meddle in other people's business." Ida turned to the guy, throwing him a menacing look. "I apologize, big sister. I allowed myself too much." He bowed and folded his palms in front of him. "Recently, the demonic forces have been active again. This time your mission is related to it, so please be careful." Marcus looked as Adelaide slowly slipped through the barrier. "Your mission is no easier, younger brother Marcus. I believe that you will return victorious, big sister." The boy smiled brightly, raised his eyebrows, and looked at the girl with a sincere look. Oliver walked up to the barrier, clutching the golden ticket in his palm, his red hair fluttering in the gentle breeze. The guy held the ticket up to him, his hand passing through the protective field as if it wasn't there. "It really works!" Oliver stepped forward decisively, passing through the barrier with his entire body. "It's a pity that this one-time pass has a return function. If I exceed the mission time, I will be forcibly teleported back to the heavenly kingdom. Otherwise, I would have already thought about how to escape." Oliver walked up to the gate and looked up at the inscription. The letters were carved into the stone. Oliver put his palm to his forehead to get a better look at them. The guy walked among the people, looking at everything with surprise and curiosity, because everything in Zuoyao County was unfamiliar and interesting to him. He turned around to look at the two guys behind him. "Even though I've seen the items being sold here before, it feels completely different in real life. Back then, all of these things were just static images, and most of the sellers couldn't even engage in conversation." Oliver froze in place, remembering that the previous owner of the body did not even have a weapon, and with a decisive step, he walked towards the tavern with a weapon. Approaching the wooden building, the guy was immediately greeted by the girl. She was standing at the entrance, Sir, are you interested in a specific type of weapon? We have absolutely everything. And secret weapons that can be hidden even in your sleeve, and huge axes with which you can easily crush your enemies. Oliver looked at the swords that stood in a row, attracting customers. They were inlaid with precious stones. I need a regular sword, so help me choose the right one. Oliver came closer to examine the swords. He took one of the swords in his hands and felt its weight and balance. The guy ran his fingers along the blade of the sword and felt its sharpness. How much is this iron sword worth? The girl smiled, watching the guy examine the blade. You have a keen eye, sir. This sword cuts steel like butter. Perfect for self-defense and will cost you only 10 million silver. Oliver turned sharply to the saleswoman, saying hesitantly, I don't have any silver with me. Can I pay with low-quality spirit stones? The dark-haired girl folded her fingers into an OK sign and smiled. Don't worry, there's a great pawn shop nearby. You can easily exchange the stones for silver there. If you convert it into spiritual stones, 3 will be enough. Well then, here you go. Oliver took out 3 blue stones from his bag and hesitantly handed them to the girl. Still doubting his purchase, the saleswoman quickly grabbed them, squeezing them in her fingers. Thank you for your purchase. By the way, I'm actually a disciple of the heavenly realm from Lu Shui Peak, and I'd like to ask you a few questions about the flower house. Oliver quickly put his brand new sword back into the sheath on his waist. Immortal cultivator, I actually know something about this place. The girl slightly opened her mouth in surprise as she looked at the guy. The girl leaned towards the boy, and in a barely audible whisper she said, The flower house is the largest brothel in this area, and recently many emaciated and dying men were found there. The authorities questioned the girls working there, and even the Flying Dragon squad checked every corner, and they all turned out to be human. But if that's really the case, how could they have emaciated all those men so much? There's definitely something fishy going on there. A soft smile formed on Oliver's face. He folded his hands in front of him and bowed slightly in gratitude. Thank you very much for the information. I will go there right now and check everything myself. The saleswoman smiled, the corners of her lips raised, creating kind lines on her face. Since you are a cultivator from the heavenly kingdom, I believe that you will bring them to light. Oliver stepped inside the establishment, feeling the light scent of summer flowers and sweet lotus tincture enveloping him. In the center of the hall, several geishas were dancing on the stage. And here it is quite empty. It seems that the emitted corpses greatly affected the flow of customers. Otherwise, it would be quite crowded here. The woman walked slowly down the wooden steps of the staircase, her light silk robe flowing over her body. At this rate, I'll have to close in less than 3 months. She put her hand to her head with a pitiful look, as if trying to calm her disturbing thoughts. Damn it, why have so many customers in my establishment already suffered? The woman noticed the guy standing at the door and, without thinking, rushed towards him, assuming that he was a client. Young sir, would you like a drink? Or perhaps to drown your hunger from the road? Invite a girl to you? A massage? Listen to a melody? Or perhaps some games? Our girls can do a lot. Oliver sniffed in displeasure and folded his hands in a welcoming gesture, bowing before her. I am a disciple of the heavenly kingdom from Lu Shui Peak. I have come to eradicate evil and restore justice. How miserable I am. Oh, immortal master, you have no idea what I had to go through. The woman began to cry theatrically, her eyes filled with tears. She pressed her lips together and, throwing her head back, said, I prayed for days and nights for a hero to come and finally save me. She suddenly pressed herself against the guy, placing her palm on his chest. Madam, calm down. Everything will be fine. First, tell me everything. He awkwardly patted her on the shoulder, not knowing how else to comfort her. 2 months ago, one of the customers was found dead in our girl's bed, which really scared the other staff. She sighed loudly, her voice shaking. At first, we thought he just had too much to drink or something, but since then, every 3 days, another customer has died. Oliver thoughtfully pressed his fingers to his chin, analyzing the information of the lady. And each of them had their buds cut out. How scary! But I constantly reported everything to the authorities. And as you know, Immortal Master, the flower house operates in the gray zone, between the authorities and the Flying Dragon. After several days of observation, they realized that all these murders are related to the flower house itself. So they left the solution to this problem to me, because of which I lost a whole bunch of silver. Every move she made was filled with such drama, as if she was playing the main role in a play. Oliver rubbed his forehead with the fingers of his right hand, frowning. This world hasn't discovered surgical organ transplants yet, So the thief who took all these kidneys was most likely a cultivator or a demon. But why kidneys? Wouldn't it have been more logical to take the heart? Is that what this demon is missing, so he decided to replenish the supply? Madam, when did the last murder take place? Oliver turned thoughtfully to the woman. The day before yesterday, so tomorrow another person will die in our establishment. How unhappy I am. Immortal Master, you must help me. Save the flower house. She leaned closer to Oliver, so that the fabric of her cleavage slipped to the side, revealing part of her chest. Madam, didn't I ask you to buy me some bird's nests from shopkeeper Wang? The blonde-haired girl slowly walked down the stairs. It's been a few days already. What are you waiting for? Melanie, things have been going pretty badly lately. You've only had 3 or 4 clients, and that's not enough to cover the cost of the bird's nests. Just be patient for a little while longer. Once the Immortal Master has sorted out our problem, I'll send someone to get them right away, the woman responded, and pointed at Oliver with her palm, and the girl turned sharply towards them. Immortal Master? Well then, I'll wait a few more days. Melanie is one of our best girls and she is a little spoiled. Her bad mood is not surprising because her monthly income has been significantly reduced. Please do not pay attention to her. The lady blushed slightly, looking at the guy with an innocent look. By the way, madam, could you prepare a guest room for me? Just a normal one. I need some time to make a plan. Today I would like to observe the work of the flower house to make sure everything goes smoothly. Oliver smiled, looking at the woman. Of course, no problem. Follow me, I will show you the way. She nodded and walked forward. Almost all of my girls' rooms have had bodies of men found in them. Only Melanie's room has never had such an incident. So her bad mood is understandable. Oliver bowed his head. Which of these rooms is hers? The lady pointed to the side with her palm. This one. Then I'll stay in the guest room today. He bowed his head in gratitude. And tomorrow morning I'll switch with Miss Melanie. Melanie, are you there? The woman walked up to the door and knocked on the woodwork several times. I'm going to bed. Did you want something, madam? The girl abruptly opened the door and looked angrily at the woman. Tomorrow morning, the Immortal Master will switch rooms with you, so you will need to pack your things as soon as you wake up. 2 pairs of eyes stared at Melanie, waiting for her answer. Catching a criminal is one thing, but a man occupying a lady's room is something else entirely. What kind of nonsense is this? Melanie shouted indignantly. I'm just worried that the criminal might harm you, otherwise I wouldn't ask you to do something like this. Oliver smiled softly to somehow calm the girl's anger. And you are very beautiful. Well, okay. Considering your attractiveness, I will allow you to stay in my chambers for a while. Melanie approached the guy and playfully ran her fingernail along his chin. An Immortal Master is different from other men. Behave yourself. The lady slapped the girl's palm sharply, making her take a few steps back from the boy. I beg your pardon? Girls from such places often lack tact. Please do not take this to heart. The woman led Oliver to her chambers. It's all right, Oliver responded. A couple of minutes later, the woman lightly pushed the doors to the guy's quarters, and they opened, letting the two inside. And here is your room, master. The location is just perfect. From here you can see the entire first floor. The lady grabbed Oliver's hand sharply, fingering his fingers. Her touch was both insistent and gentle. My life and my livelihood are in your hands. If there is another murder, even the few clients I have left will run away in all directions. I'll do my best, I promise, and now I need to get ready. Oliver began to persistently push the woman towards the exit, trying to speed up her steps and lead her out of the room. Immortal Master, the woman said in surprise, looking at the guy. Wait! As soon as she said these words, the door closed in front of her nose. Oliver walked to his desk and wearily sank into a chair. The boy carefully pulled out his new sword from its sheath, carefully grasping the hilt. If only I could return to my homeworld, I would never miss a single quest again. Now that I have a weapon, I will practice cultivation tonight. I need to thoroughly study all the techniques. The cultivation of the original owner of the body. I hope it will not be too difficult to deal with the criminal. Oliver began to swing his sword in different directions, while simultaneously trying to read the instructions he was holding in his other hand. According to the book, when you reach the foundation formation stage, you need to gather spiritual energy at the point on your forehead to sense the spirit of all things. As your cultivation grows, the recovery will become stronger, and eventually, it will reach a completely different level. Oliver lowered his sword, carefully examining the pages of the book. Even though I am at the Starfire stage, which is equivalent to Foundation formation, I should be able to do it. Oliver closed his eyes and shadows began to appear in front of him, outlining the outlines of human figures. He suddenly opened his eyes. I really feel everything that exists. The boy began reading the book with renewed interest, plunging into a world of deep thought. It turns out that cultivation is so interesting. And why did the former owner of the body neglect cultivation? Oliver, immersed in reading a book on martial arts, began to perform martial movements in the air with his hands, practicing punches and blocks. A couple of hours later, the guy breathing heavily looked at his palm. I have almost completely learned the first 3 chapters of this technique. Oliver, lost in his thoughts, suddenly felt lightness in his body. He did not notice how his arms and legs changed, how his body became smaller and softer. Night came, which meant he turned into a puppy again. The little animal happily jumped onto the soft mattress of the bed. Its little paws slid deftly across the surface. Oh well, I've been on my feet all day anyway. I need to get a good rest so I can catch the criminal tomorrow. That night, when the moon was shining brightly in the sky, Adelaide, hovering above the forest, her long hair fluttering in the wind. Whether I run away or not, death awaits you anyway. Ha ha ha, you fell into our trap without realizing it. Gentleman Adelaide, more like a dummy, shouted one of the men who were chasing her. The girl hovering above the forest felt fear grip her heart. Their laughter echoed in the air. The demons following her trail caught up with her from above. Ha 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 ha, Adelaide, today your jade spirit body will become ours. She knew that simply running away was no longer of any use. Ida reached for her belt where her sword rested. A slight movement and she pulled it out. The moon sword of silk dew. Adelaide swung her sword, the blade glinting in the dim moonlight as a vortex of blue energy formed around her. The light emanating from the sword pierced the darkness of the night, blinding the demons. Their angry screams were silenced as a wave of power struck them like a thunderclap. The girl softly and smoothly landed on the ground and approached the demons, pointing the sharp end of the sword at them. Immortal, immortal lady, I beg you, spare us! One of them began to whine pitifully, raising himself up on his elbows. But the girl was merciless. With one swing of her sword, she struck down several demons. After defeating the demons, Ida climbed onto her sword, the blade responding to her touch, rising into the air. With a quick and confident movement, she pointed the sword upward, and it instantly shot up, leaving behind a sparkling trail of light. The speed was incredible, so it reached Zoyao County in a matter of minutes. The next morning, Melanie came out of her chambers to meet Oliver, her face lit up with a smile. Sir, how do you plan to catch the criminal? For now it's a secret, a smile played on the guy's face. The girl slowly walked past the guy, smiling at the corner of her lips. But the criminal cut out the kidneys of his victims, aren't you afraid? Melanie turned around, a sly hint flashing in her eyes. The smile on her face became playful, and her gaze became mysterious. Anyway, thank you for your help, sir. Oliver looked down at his feet, trying not to trip over the stone slabs, stepped into the girl's chambers and suddenly heard a voice from behind. Miss, unfortunately, we do not serve women. Oliver peered out from behind the door cautiously, curiously, his eyes widening in surprise. Why is Adelaide here? Shouldn't she be on a mission? Madam, there are almost no male visitors left here anyway. If a guest brought money, will you really drive her away? A smile played on Ida's face. She squeezed the silver stone with her fingertips and showed it to the woman. Ah, you're right. Would you like to have a bite to eat or stay the night? The lady immediately smiled, laughing a little. Adelaide looked at the woman standing in front of her with a slightly confused expression. Her eyes were filled with bewilderment, and her lips involuntarily parted. She felt a demonic aura in that place. Fortunately, it didn't smell of blood. Most likely it was a small demon. Oliver pressed his palms against the door, trying not to make a sound. He pressed his ear to the cold wood, listening to the conversation between the girl and the woman on the other side of the door. Who is in this room? Adelaide suddenly pointed to the door where Oliver was, eavesdropping on their conversation. Just one of the girls from our flower house. Who else could be there? The woman answered. You should be especially careful now. Demons have become more active lately. You yourself should understand that suspicious individuals can get in here too. Adelaide carefully examined the lady, squinting her brown eyes. Oliver let out a shuddering breath, placing his hand to his head, scratching the top of his head. Thanks for the warning, miss, he whispered. Oliver let out a heavy sigh as he fell onto the bed and covered his head with a pillow. When I went out into the outside world, the difference between the auras of a human and a demon is too obvious. I need to find a way to hide my demonic energy as soon as possible, Otherwise, Adelaide will figure it out when I return to the heavenly realm. Night slowly enveloped the city, plunging it into soft darkness. The streets, previously filled with noise and light, now became quiet and calm. The moon hung in the sky, illuminating the sidewalks with a thin layer of light. Oliver settled comfortably on the bed, his arms under his head, the pillow comfortably supporting his neck. Judging by what the owner of the flower house said, the attacks usually happen around this time. This demon killer should be showing up soon. Oliver suddenly heard a loud cry of, "Help!" a sound that pierced the silence of the night. His heart began to beat faster, and he sat up abruptly in bed, listening to the surrounding sounds. Running out of his chambers, Oliver saw a man holding Melanie by the neck, holding a sword in his hands. "Let me go," the girl said quietly, gasping for breath, clinging to the man's hand with her fingers, trying to break free. At Maloney's feet lay a corpse, seemingly dried up, with white eyes staring lifelessly into the void. Oliver swung his sword behind the man, its blade flashing in the dim light, cutting through the air with a loud whistle. "Now let her go quick." Oliver hit the man hard in the back with his sword. The sudden pain made him abruptly let go of the girl, and she fell onto the cold asphalt. Oliver landed softly on the ground, bending his knee to the ground, trying not to lose his balance. Luckily, this body has the blood of a demonic wolf flowing through it. At least there is some benefit from the former owner. He knew several self-defense techniques, and I also trained last night. "Damn it! Annoying cultivator!" The masked man frowned as he looked at Oliver. He quickly jumped away from the guy and rose up, escaping from the next attack. Oliver squatted down next to the girl and gently placed his palm on the top of her head. "Call someone for help and I'll catch the criminal in the meantime." Melanie pressed herself to the ground, screaming in fear. "Yes, okay!" The girl lying on the ground slightly raised herself on her elbows. Her voice trembled, but she tried to scream, to call for help. Her eyes ran around the trees around her, looking for at least someone. Adelaide ran out from around the corner of the flower house. She heard a cry for help, and without thinking rushed to the source of the sound and found Melanie lying on the ground. What happened? What's going on here? Her eyes were filled with confusion, and her eyebrows were drawn together. Ida leaned over the girl, placing her hand on her shoulder. "The immortal master chased after the criminal," she replied. Melanie, feeling Adelaide supporting her, fell to the ground, closing her eyes. She could not hold on any longer. "Immortal master? Did someone else take this low-level mission?" The lady's mouth slightly opened, and her brows furrowed even more. Oliver rushed after the man. He jumped over curbs, with each second increasing the distance between him and the fugitive. "Stop! You can't escape!" The guy flew through the narrow passage with the same speed, but finding himself in a dead end, he froze in place. In front of him was a blank wall, behind which there was no passage. Oliver looked around, but there was no one here, as if the man had evaporated into thin air. Judging from the fight just now, his cultivation level is close to the peak of foundation formation, or even the first stage of vein condensation. Things are taking a bad turn. Oliver panted heavily as he tried to catch his breath after running for a long time. Oliver took out a gold card, looked at it. Considering today the mission has already lasted 2 days, there are only 5 left, the guy thought. If I don't manage to complete the mission, then I'll be forcibly teleported back to the Heavenly Kingdom, in which case I'll have to resign myself and go the way that was prepared for the former NPC, die by Adelaide's sword. The guy made a sad face, opening his mouth in a theatrical sob. "Young Master Oliver, why don't you come in?" The girl's hand gently landed on the guy's shoulder. Not expecting this, Oliver suddenly jumped back, instinctively waving his hands. "Is something wrong?" asked the girl. She had gorgeous hair, and the girl was dressed in a beautiful dress, dark cherry color. "Young Master Oliver, are you all right?" "Miss, are you a demon fox? Aren't you afraid of me?" Oliver raised his eyebrows in surprise, frozen in place. "Is it worth it?" Tears welled up at the corners of her eyes. "Why should I be afraid of you?" "Oh, never mind. You called me Young Master Oliver. Have I met you?" Oliver waved his hands slightly and smiled awkwardly. "Ha ha ha. The young master decided to joke around with me again." The girl gently wrapped her hand around Oliver's elbow and laughed. "We're still in the human realm, so let's go to the demon market first." Oliver, with a slight trepidation, took a step forward, and together with his new acquaintance they stepped through the shimmering purple film of the portal. The world around Oliver was transformed. He found himself in an unusual place, in a demonic kingdom. Different demons were walking around him, All of them were dressed in bright clothes. "Miss, do you really know me?" Oliver turned to the girl, still not believing what was happening. "Young Master Oliver, please stop playing tricks on me. Everyone here knows who you are." The fox's cheeks blushed slightly. "Oh, young Master Oliver. Long time no see." One of the demons waved his hand at the boy in a friendly manner. "2 years ago, your aunt asked me to forge a set of chains for you that seal demonic energy. The payment was made, but you disappeared." The girl pointed her hand at the entrance to the tavern. "I never thought that I would run into you at the entrance to the demon market." Oliver, finding himself inside the tavern, felt 3 pairs of eyes on him. Young Master Oliver, 3 girls, triplets, looking exactly like a demonic forest, threw themselves at the guy. "Young Master Oliver, where have you been for the past 2 years? We kept your items safe and sound." "Master, why don't you want to take us with you?" The boy's cheeks turned bright red. He looked at the little girls in surprise. "What's going on here? Does the former owner of the body really have such a rich backstory? These chains can suppress the demonic aura. Only great perfection stage cultivators will be able to sense it." The demonic fox pushed a small box towards Oliver, smiling. "You 3 quickly return to the counter. Stop shirking your work. What's wrong with you?" The girl shouted sharply, looking sternly at the 3 girls, who nodded and said in unison, "Okay, madam." Oliver leaned over, examining the small box. "So everything is really paid for already? It means I can take them." The guy extended his palm to touch the treasured box. "Actually, young Master Oliver, you don't need to pay for anything in this store. Yours is extremely favorable to my Dean family." The girl touched the guy's palm with her fingers. "Actually, I would like to buy some pills, but I only have a few low-grade spirit stones left." Oliver abruptly withdrew his hand, smiling slightly. In the demon market, spirit stones are not particularly valuable. But since the young master often interacts with humans, you should have some human things with you. These can be worth quite a lot, the girl explained. "Unfortunately, I only have this pouch." Oliver pulled a small brown pouch out of his pocket, showing it to the demonic fox. "The pill shop is outside, next to the roadside stall run by the plump medicine spirit." The demonic fox folded her arms and leaned her elbows on the table. "Then I'll go there first later." Oliver turned around and walked towards the exit. "It must be here." The guy's gaze fell on a small table standing in the middle of the street. On it stood a cup with a spoon. "Is there anyone here?" Oliver shouted, putting his hand to his lips. "Sir, I'm here." The cup spoke sharply, looking at the guy. "So you are the owner of the store?" Oliver opened his mouth in surprise, looking down at a small wooden cup with eyes and a mouth. "That's right, sir. What do you want to buy?" she answered, putting her small hands on her hips. "I would like to exchange this bag for pills, something that can heal wounds, if you have any." The guy held out the bag to the pot, showing it from all sides. The pot began to stir with a spoon inside itself. The spoon moved on its own, and the pot made strange sounds, and then a small green ball flew out of its mouth. "Here! I am willing to exchange your pouch for a 9-cycle rejuvenation pill. It can revive even the dead. But you only have one with you, so unfortunately, there will only be 1 pill." The pot picked up the pill with its small handle and showed it to the guy. "Well, so be it. Next time I'll try to bring more." A smile lit up the guy's face and his eyebrows rose. Later in the evening, tired, Oliver returned home. He opened the door to his chambers and went inside. "Even though I lost my things, I gained real treasures. So it definitely can't be called a failure. First, I'll put the things away, and then I'll need to check the owner of the flower house. Another person died today, and something tells me that her business will not last long." Oliver suddenly felt the cold of a sharp sword on his shoulder and froze in place, hearing Adelaide's voice. "Where is the man you were chasing? Sister Adelaide, how did you end up here?" He suddenly recoiled, turning around, and saw a blonde girl in front of him. "You give off too much of a demonic aura." She narrowed her eyes, and her eyebrows drew together. "Must be leftovers from the fight with that criminal," Oliver stuttered, still looking at her sword with fear as it glinted in the moonlight. "I apologize for the inconvenience, big sister. That's how it is." Adelaide slowly put away her sword, raising it up to rest against her face. The girl standing next to him glared at Oliver, her lips pressed into a thin line and her eyebrows furrowed. "Are you sure?" Oliver became nervous, beads of sweat running down his face. "Yeah, follow me. We need to talk to the owner of the flower house. I will report the situation to the main pavilion and ask for an extension of the mission." Oliver's eyes shone, and he turned sharply to the girl who was moving towards the entrance. Really? Ida turned around and snorted, "Enough chatter, we need to go." Adelaide and Oliver found themselves in Melanie's room. The girl was lying in bed. Her expression was relaxed, but her eyes were closed. Next to her sat the lady, leaning over the bed with a spoon in her hand. "Miss Melanie, can you describe the appearance of the attacker?" "That person, it seemed like he had no face. Just a frightening black void. It must have been a demon. Yes, that's right." Melanie exhaled heavily, her eyebrows slightly raised and her eyes widened. "He attacked while you were busy?" Ida and Oliver stopped by the bed. "Yes," the girl answered quietly. During sexual intercourse, the yang energy in men's kidneys reaches its peak, making them the perfect delicacy for demons and demon cultivators. Adelaide turned to the hero, who turned bright red like a tomato. "Is that so? I thought that Melanie would be safe if she switched rooms, so I let her accept a client." The lady lifted her handkerchief, wiping away her tears from her cheeks, and the others looked at her in surprise. "Greed has blinded me. Now that another person has died, the flower house in Zuoyao County will have to close. Gentlemen, are there any other places like this within 100 miles where men can relax?" Adelaide took a couple of steps forward. "No, just us," the woman replied, sobbing. "That's great. Then the criminal will return. But for now, most likely, he will lie low for a few days. My younger brother and I will stay here for a month, during which time I will pretend to be your employee, and he will be my client." Oliver froze in bewilderment, scrolling through Adelaide's older sister's words in his head. "What? Does your little brother not like something?" Adelaide turned around at the guy's question, frowning. "Of course not. I'll do as my sister says." Oliver immediately looked away so as not to meet her eyes. "Then, madam, please come up with a pseudonym for me." Adelaide turned to the woman, looking at her resolutely. "That way it will be easier for me to pretend to be your employee, so as not to attract unnecessary attention. I can't allow a master of your level to stoop to the level of a girl from my establishment." The mistress shook her head. "I'm just doing my duty to exorcise the demon, mistress. Don't get your hopes up, little brother. From this day on, you'll be living with me." Oliver's eyes widened even more, and he looked at Ida silently. "What? Me?" Oliver exclaimed, his eyebrows raising as he pointed his finger at himself. "Big sister, can I lose a kidney too?" The boy followed Adelaide to the exit, twisting his face in a sad grimace, thinking, "I can transform again at night, which is extremely bad. If I don't kill the criminal as soon as possible, then I will be the first to die." The next morning, after the turbulent events of the previous day, Oliver sat on a large rock near the lake, thinking, "I read the 4th chapter of the scripture, Universal Laws, Basic Elements. It wasn't that difficult after all." The guy clutched the book in his palm. "I need to increase my cultivation before I encounter that killer again. Next time I won't let him get away." Oliver, putting down the book he was trying to read, sat in the lotus position on the rock, closing his eyes. The text says how to open the Sea of Ki. You need to collect spiritual energy and direct it out. At that moment, when Oliver was deep in thought, a light breeze appeared around him, gathering energy into one. Behind the guy, unnoticed by him, stood Adelaide. She watched him, his meditation and improvement of strength. There was surprise in her eyes. "Since the day Oliver challenged me, he has changed a lot." She frowned as if trying to solve a riddle. "I first met him back then, 2 years ago. So why did he want to marry me as soon as he entered the heavenly kingdom?" The day, unnoticed by them, approached evening. The sun was already setting behind the horizon. The girl, sitting under a tree in the lotus position, was enveloped in a blue glow. Oliver, also sitting under the tree next to the girl, was improving his skills. His body was illuminated in red. Oliver opened his eyes suddenly and yawned loudly, folding his arms across his chest. Ida, who was sitting next to him, looked at him questioningly, her eyebrows slightly raised. Noticing the girl's gaze, Oliver awkwardly rubbed the back of his head and smiled brightly, revealing his teeth. The sun had already completely set behind the horizon. Night had come suddenly. The stars lit up in the sky. The air became colder. Oliver sat at the table in his chambers, hunched over, his body shaking and his lips pressed into a thin line, his fists clenched. "I have a feeling I'm going to transform again today." The door to Oliver's chambers creaked quietly, and Adelaide entered the room. The guy looked back and quickly got up from his chair. "Sister Ida, you're back already." Adelaide walked past Oliver and sat down on the chair opposite him. I watched you all day, and after sunset I went into town to take another look around. Oliver was surprised to hear the girl's words. All day? His mouth slightly open in surprise. Adelaide, without taking her eyes off Oliver, picked up the cup of tea that was on the table in front of him. She brought it to her lips and took a small sip. When I entered the store yesterday, I felt a faint demonic aura. The girl frowned for a moment and her eyes became stern. She put down her cup of tea and her hand rested on the table. She disappeared today. Oliver felt nervous. He felt the girl's gaze on him and felt awkward. Wasn't what she sensed yesterday my demonic aura? After I put on that bracelet, the demonic aura was suppressed, so she couldn't sense it. The girl glanced at the boy, then slowly stood up from the chair. Her movements were graceful. It must be the residual aura of that demon, so I decided to go around the entire city to check if there are any more traces of his energy. It's already late at night, so I'll go take a bath and go to bed. I'm still a guy, we can live in different rooms, isn't it awkward for you to take a bath? The guy closed his eyes, awkwardly rubbing his neck with his palm. You once said that you would become stronger and marry me, so why are you so embarrassed now? Adelaide came closer to Oliver, looking up at him. Then I was young and stupid and sometimes I said all sorts of nonsense. Don't take it to heart. Oliver let out a laugh. All sorts of nonsense, huh? Ida's face changed in an instant and she lowered her eyes to the floor. What if I let you swim with me? Adelaide looked up at Oliver again, the boy's cheeks turning bright red and his eyes widening slightly. The girl slowly began to undress. She carefully took off each piece of clothing. Brother, please prepare hot water for me. As the night approached, a calm atmosphere reigned in the room. The soft light of the lamp gently illuminated the space. Adelaide, behind the screen, began to slowly undress. Oliver, sitting next to the screen, poured water into a barrel. The water quietly and softly gurgled. Ida slowly walked up to the wooden barrel standing nearby. Steam from the hot water rose into the air. She let go of her hair, and it fell softly onto her shoulders. The girl lowered her legs into the hot moisture, feeling the warmth envelop her, relaxing every muscle. Then she completely immersed herself in the barrel. Brother Oliver, tell me, did you study anywhere before entering the Heavenly Kingdom? Soft drops of water rested on her shoulders as Adelaide turned to Oliver. No, I didn't have that opportunity, Oliver replied, talking to the girl through the screen. Well, I thought so, but don't you want to learn more? I can help with that. Her palms slowly stroked the skin, the scent of herbs and oils wafting through the air. But personal training is prohibited. Oliver, with a slight smile on his lips, approached the screen. He looked behind it, leaning forward a little. How long do you plan on staring? Ida turned around sharply and looked at the guy indignantly. Her eyebrows furrowed sharply, and her lips pressed into a thin line. Sorry, I got a little nervous. The guy suddenly covered his eyes with his palms. Panic was noticeable in his movements as he hid behind the screen. I won't be your teacher, I just need to make sure that you won't hold me back when we catch the criminal. Is that understood? Steam was gathering around Adelaide. Don't worry, if anyone asks, I'll say I learned it from the scriptures. Oliver swallowed the lump in his throat, still embarrassed by his actions. Oliver was standing in the center of the room when suddenly his body started shaking. He felt a wave of heat run down his spine and noticed his tail slowly extending out of his back. Damn! I forgot about the transformation. Sister Ida, I'm feeling hungry, I'll go find a shop to eat some noodles. Adelaide raised her head in surprise when she heard Oliver's voice. The guy, feeling how his body continued to change, could no longer stay within the cramped walls of the room. Grabbing the door handle, he abruptly opened the door and ran out into the street. We need to hurry. The landscape around him changes. Trees fly past, and Oliver, who was just a man not long ago, feels like he has already become a snow-white puppy. The boy, who found himself in the body of a dog, carefully stepped along the soft forest path, his new paws quietly touching the ground and his ears perked up. What is that smell? How delicious it smells! A puppy's head poked out from the thick bushes, his large, expressive eyes widened in surprise as he looked ahead with interest. Found it! In a small clearing in front of the puppy sat a girl, comfortably settled by the fire. The fire crackled, and above it on a spit a fish was roasting. Next to her, curled up, sat a ginger cat. Noticing the puppy, the blue-haired girl smiled softly and took off her hat in greeting. Puppy, are you hungry? Oliver looked around, his eyes sparkling with curiosity, suddenly stopping. He poked his paw into his chest in surprise, as if asking, "Me? Yes, yes, I'm talking to you, baby." The girl pulled her hat down onto her back. "A collar? So you have a master? Then you shouldn't be wandering around in the forest at this hour. If you get lost, your master will be very upset." She leaned over to the puppy and with a smile handed him the fish, carefully skewered on a spit. The puppy smiled happily, looking at the golden crust of the fish. "Help yourself, you'll like it." The little animal, without thinking for a second, bit the fish with his teeth. His little teeth confidently held the fish, and joy overwhelmed him. But suddenly the puppy's attention switched. A ginger cat sat nearby, with a displeased expression on her face. She carefully watched the dog, showing her claws. "Well, how do you like my mistress's fish? Is it tasty?" The puppy, feeling that the cat's attention was completely focused on him, grinned. He firmly stepped on her paws and carefully poked his nose into hers. "Are you really jealous of your mistress?" She looked into his eyes with all her anger. They sparkled like two bright lights in the darkness. At that moment, she stretched out her front paws and showed her sharp claws. "I am a spirit animal, not some mongrel. How can I even be jealous?" At first, they circled each other, exchanging jabs and menacing glances. The cat hissed menacingly, while the dog barked, trying to take control of the situation. They pounced on each other. The girl, seeing this, sharply screamed, "Stop it!" She took a step forward, suddenly tripped over a stone that was hiding in the grass, and the girl flew down. At that moment, her dress caught on a protruding branch of one of the trees. With a sharp click, it was torn off her body. The animals stopped abruptly, their gazes instantly directed towards the girl lying on the ground. She was naked, her body writhing in pain.